And we're going. Attempt number 2. Chris Moeller. Hello. How you doing?
Yeah,
Action.
I'm doing good. How about yourself? Yeah, and action.
I'm here. It's raining out, so I'm inside today, and I don't know if I'm excited to talk about it, but I'm excited to learn a little bit about this whole tariff subject that's been going on for the past several months, I think, at this point. Now it's potentially becoming a reality, but to my thoughts, I think we already have to deal with it. So could you
Yeah,
give
I don't know what there's nothing new going on here. Has always been the case. So as long as I've been in this business, which is getting, pretty close to 40 years, there's always been duty on certain imported items from either Taiwan or mainland China. Now, we primarily deal with Taiwan. Um, but the duty rates have always been the same when you get something from Taiwan or China. So I don't know. I'll back up and start over. So my understanding on duties on bicycle parts has always been that the government in the United States, Canada, England, etc., they are trying to protect their domestic bicycle manufacturing industry by applying a duty or a tariff on imported stuff so that the prices aren't too low and companies that make stuff domestically can compete. So I'll give you a good example. In Canada, they always had Norco, which was a big Canadian bicycle manufacturer, a big brand in Canada, and they were made in Canada, assembled in Canada, the whole deal. So they always had, a high tariff on bikes coming from mainland China, Taiwan, etc., which allows Norco to compete on price because it's more expensive to make a bike in a place like Canada or the United States than it is in Taiwan or China. So that's always been the idea, is to level the playing field and allow domestic manufacturers to compete with imported bikes. And that's always been the case, even in the United States. But the big difference has always been that in the United States on bicycles, for instance, 20-inch bicycles, the duty has always been 11%. So if I buy a bike from either mainland China or from Taiwan, there's going to be an 11% duty on that bike. That's been that way since I got into complete bikes with Fit in probably 2002. So it's a chunk of money, especially if you get a container of bikes that's, let's just say, hypothetically speaking, I get a container of bikes. We just got a container of bikes today, as a matter of fact. So normally there's about 520 20-inch bikes in a 40-foot container. And let's say the average purchase price is, $220. Okay. So that's 114 grand for the bikes in the container times 11%. That's 13,000 basically. So we would have paid roughly $13,000 today to the United States government as a duty on complete bikes. So that's all we're talking about. And that's been going on forever. Now, the difference is some countries have a much higher duty or tariff, if you want to call it that. Same thing, but they have a much higher duty on bikes coming from mainland China than they do on bikes coming from Taiwan.
Mm.
But not in the United States. In the United States, the whole time I've been in this business, it's been the same. I like to get my bikes from Taiwan because I think you get better bikes in Taiwan than you do in mainland China. But a lot of the BMX bikes that are sold out there are coming from mainland China. Now, countries like Canada and the UK, they have way bigger tariffs on bikes coming from mainland China than they do Taiwan. In fact, some countries have 50% duty on bikes coming from mainland China, and as low as maybe 8 or 10% on bikes coming from Taiwan. So the fact that China, it's a communist country, they don't pay their workers as well as they do in Taiwan. they get penalized, I think, a little bit more around the world than Taiwan does. But the United States has never been like that. Now, are we going to get in line with all these other countries here pretty soon? Possibly. But is that a terrible thing?
Yeah, interesting. Uh, so it's always been this 11%. Do
On
you,
bikes. On bikes, bikes
right.
have always been 11%. Every different type of part has a different duty amount.
Yeah.
And you can look this up online. If you get online and just look up the government, like a .gov site for tariff codes, and go to bicycles, and then you start breaking down all the different categories of bicycle parts, you'll start seeing the different duties. And and it depends on what country it's coming from. But like for instance, rubber is generally free, like no duty. Some drivetrain parts like chains and cranks might be 8%. Some parts will be 10%. Bicycles, 20-inch bicycles are 11%. So it's called a, uh, do you see it? Are you looking it
Yeah,
up?
I'm looking. It's a
Yep,
harmonized
that's it.
tariff schedule.
So you've got like a 4-digit number, then a 6-digit number, and a 4-digit number, and all separated with periods. Those are the codes. Every part has a code, and you pay different duties or tariffs, based on what type of part it is. This is nothing new. This has been going on forever.
Yeah.
So, like I said, it's interesting because there isn't much of a domestic bicycle industry in the United States anymore. But when this stuff was first cooked up, you had Schwinn, you had Huffy, you had tons of companies making bikes start to finish right here in the United States.
Yeah.
So these are designed to allow American companies to compete with much, much cheaper labor costs in other countries. And that's what it boils down to at the end of the day is labor.
Right.
Like let's say, round numbers, if people in this country are making, let's say, $18 an hour, in Taiwan, the labor is probably going to be about a third of that. It's going to be about, $6 an hour. And then in mainland China, it's going to be about a third of that. So it's going to be about $2 an hour. So you're talking about a person working in a frame factory, assembly factory, making $2 an hour versus one making $18 an hour. So it's much more expensive to work in the United States. Taiwan is pretty expensive nowadays as well. And then mainland China is cheaper. But now there's becoming other places that are even cheaper than that. If you go to Vietnam or you go to India, now the labor cost is going to go down even more in these different countries. Now, I'm not sure about duties or tariffs on parts coming from those countries off the top of my head, but this is nothing new. I don't know why everybody's acting like this is some new thing.
Right. Yeah, I assumed I remember one of my very first interview things that I even did was with someone just contemplating because the tariff thing was talked about years ago too, and we were talking about what that could mean. I think it's probably safe to assume now that that 11% is not going to go down, but what would it mean if things play out and that number were to go up?
Yeah, well, it would mean that the retail cost of goods produced in those countries is going to go up.
Yeah. So for BMX, do you see companies or any type of, or cycling in general, do you see any type of manufacturing moving back over here if that number were to go up?
I mean, the problem is, let's say you had a partner that had a big facility and had a lot of capital and wanted to invest in a an assembly plant to assemble bikes in the United States. Now these do exist. I've heard there's one in North Carolina. Um, there are some assembly plants in the United States, but I haven't used one.
Mm-hmm.
But let's just say somebody set one up for BMX bikes specifically. You still would have to import so much stuff.
Right.
I mean, you're going to have to import. tires, inner tubes,
Pedals.
pedals, rims, spokes, nipples. I mean, domestically, you could make frames, forks, bars, stems, sprockets, cranks, you know, hubs,
Yeah.
and that, seat posts. Well, not even seat posts, really. Yeah, you'd have to import all that other stuff anyway, and then you'd be paying, duties on those parts.
Right.
So, I mean, are these duties doing what they were supposed to do when they were first set up? I don't feel like they are, because there's not much of a domestic bicycle industry to protect anymore.
Right.
And I think it's interesting, the ones that are 0%, like the types of parts that end up being 0%, seem to me that somebody lobbied to get them down to 0%. Like I've noticed that a lot of his motorcycle industry,
I think I saw chains set on here.
yeah, like chains or tires, inner tubes, grips, stuff like that. I think the duty on all that is 0. And I feel like that's all stuff that probably somebody at Harley Davidson or some other big motorcycle company probably lobbied to get those to 0.
Right.
But and it worked, or hypothetically speaking, maybe that's what happened. So I don't know. But I mean, I've been dealing with this for years, and it's a lot of money, because let's say when these bikes, like this container of fit bikes that came in today, that money for the 11% to the government, which, like I said, today might have been like 120 grand or something. I'd have to check that out. Or what did I say? 13 grand.
Yeah.
13 grand maybe on that. That gets taken out of your account automatically, by the customs department.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't even have the bikes here yet, and they've already got that 13 grand. And then you got to pay the ocean freight to get the container here, and all the fees and all that. And it just starts to add up. But, basically the retail price of a bike is usually about 3 times what the bike cost when it hit the water.
Right. That makes sense.
So if you're adding 11% to that, it's just going to translate to, to the retail price at the end.
So what about for something like, this is in relation to S&M, and then frames that are imported from Taiwan, if that tariff goes up and frame prices naturally have to go up because of that, does that help? That's an example. Is that an example where that's something that helps the domestic manufacturer, being S&M, because they can compete easier that way?
Well, you know what? I'm not sure. Let me look. I'm looking real quick to see what the duty is on an imported frame. So, most of the frames are all made at the same shop in Taiwan.
Yeah.
Most of the high-end frames are made at the same shop, and we work at that shop as well. And it looks like, so the tariff code on a frame coming from Taiwan, now I don't get frames from mainland China, so I don't know what that is, but from Taiwan, the tariff code 8714913000, that duty's 3.9%. So that's not that high.
Right.
And plus, you're talking about a purchase price of like $140 probably. Whereas to make a frame here is like double that,
Yep.
So, I mean, you're adding 3.9% to half the cost.
So it would have to be significantly higher before it even see a kind of help.
Yeah, no, it's that isn't leveling the playing field. Adding 3.9% to half the cost isn't leveling the playing field at all. It's not even about that anymore. It's just about the government's just getting money, and they're not going to stop getting money.
Yeah, right.
Federal income tax wasn't always a thing either, but it is now, and they're not going to stop taking federal income tax from your paycheck.
Yeah, and that's part of the whole...
I mean, once they're getting it, they're not going to just stop getting it.
Right. And that's part of the whole entire reason that tariff conversation was brought up in the first place.
But I mean, then there's also the, the argument that dealing with mainland China, isn't really great for a number of reasons. One, I mean, is it a national security issue kind of thing? Like, are we helping the enemy?
Yeah.
Are they treating people, very well
Yeah.
there?
It's a
I mean,
moral thing.
yeah, I've worked in mainland China a lot, and back in probably 2000, I don't know, 7 maybe or 8, there were a couple years where we did the Fit complete bike start to finish in mainland China outside of Shanghai. And I used to go there all the time, and it was a totally different vibe than working in Taiwan. Taiwan feels like very Western, you feel like
Mm.
you're almost in the United States. When you're in mainland China, you go to the factory, back to the hotel, to the factory, to the hotel, to the factory, to the hotel, to the airport. You don't want to go out. You kind of feel like you're in danger,
Yeah.
in my
Interesting.
opinion. At least back then. I haven't been there in a few years, but yeah, that's kind of the thing. It's like, do you want to buy products that are made in mainland China? But the answer to that is a resounding yes, because when you go to Walmart, everything's made in mainland China, and
Hmm.
people dumping, hundreds of dollars on a weekly basis.
Yeah. So I guess what this is coming to and what it sounds like to me is that in order for these things to have a real impact, they're going to have to be big numbers. Like the tariff on a bike frame would have to be 100% for it to
Right.
even get to where it's at, like currently.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
Interesting.
and but here's the thing. I mean, that tariff maybe under this, new administration in Washington, maybe that tariff is going to go up in mainland China from mainland China, but I highly doubt it's going to go up from Taiwan.
Okay.
And you're
So,
going to get a much better product, most likely, I think, from Taiwan than you are from mainland China. But I don't know. I mean, what are the implications as far as like the average rider? Bike prices probably, yeah, they probably will go up, but I mean, they're pretty cheap right
yeah,
now.
I think
I
they
mean, look
need
look
to.
at the cost of a BMX bike. It's like it hasn't gone up in ages.
Yeah, it absolutely needs, like, for the industry's sake, the prices could be higher.
Yeah, you can't do anything. Everybody wants the entry level BMX complete bike to be $399 retail, which means that the shop wants to get it for, um, the
Two.
shop wants to get it for 240, which means that the manufacturer, like the Fit bike, the Fit bikes of the world want to sell that thing for, um, 170,
Hmm.
which means that they gotta buy it, they've got to buy it for, 120. I mean, it's insane. And then you've got the duty, then you've got the ocean freight, and then once it gets here, the bike shop wants you to ship it to them for free.
Hmm.
And the FedEx and the UPS, all the different, domestic carriers have gone up dramatically. So now it costs 20 something dollars to even ship a bike to a bike shop. The whole thing just sucks
Yeah.
so bad. It's insane. And now we've made maybe 15 bucks on a bike. And out of that $15, $20 that we just made with the whole bike, $15, $20, whatever, barely anything. You got to pay employees, team riders, put on events, pay your rent, keep the lights on. I mean, it's outrageous.
And that you have to think of how many bikes you have to sell for that to be
Oh yeah,
worth it. It's thousands and thousands at $20 profit on a bike. You sell
yeah.
10,000 of those, then yeah, maybe it's worth it. But how do you, and we're at a point now where it's like, how do you even sell 10,000 bikes? You
You
don't.
don't. You don't. And then the other there's so many costs that you're not even factoring in here. I mean, there's the cost of coming up with the graphics, there's the cost of the tooling on any kind of new part that you're trying to develop to make the bike better than the previous year. So back when things were booming, you would do a new tire, you
Yeah.
would do a new pedal design, maybe a new seat mold, you would do all kinds of new parts to improve on last year's model and, make the bikes fresh and better than they were before. But you're talking 10, 20 grand to do a mold for a new pedal, or, 5, 6, 7 grand to do a new mold for a grip. So what you're going to see is the same stuff just every year.
Yeah.
It's going to be, people are not going to develop new tires, new grips, new pedals. They're just going to go, well, we're not selling enough to even make any money, let alone invest all this money in new tooling to make new cool stuff.
Yeah, I mean, just to give a little perspective on that, you talk about 10 to 20 grand for a tire mold, and you're talking about making $10 maybe on a tire. How many? That's a lot of tires to be sold before you're even profitable on that new thing. And then that's not even to bring up if you have to make any modifications to the mold, which is another 3 to 5, however many $1,000 that is.
I mean, I've never heard of anyone making a modification to a tire mold.
So more so grips.
You know what? I take that back. We just did. But you can only make a modification to a tire mold that involves adding material to the mold, which removes material from the tire. Like, for instance, a mainline 2.4 had that little half triangle on the center knob.
Yeah.
And Clint Reynolds never liked the half triangle. I always liked it because I worked it out that when it was in the dirt and the tire turned, it was giving you more traction. But he didn't like that, especially on like concrete. So we did modify that mold by going in and having them fill in every single knobby around the whole mold, like with weld bead or something, and then grinding it down. So yeah, we were able to modify a tire mold, but if the tire itself doesn't work well, you scrap the mold. And I've only done that one time. And I made a tire for S&M, one of the early, I think it was called a Speedball before we'd ever brought out a Speedball. And I got the tire made, and I had Aiken test it, and he hated it. Basically, the tire was round, but it had a real flat spot in the center.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, oh, this will be really cool because instead of riding on a peak, you'll be riding on a flat surface, and you get more traction. But Mikey rode it, and he didn't like when you're manualing and you're laid over to the side, you get up on that little thing, and then it felt really weird. So we ended up scrapping that tire, never came out, and that was probably like 15 grand.
Yeah, it's madness. So you're not modifying tire molds very often, but grip molds.
Not really. I mean, like I said, it's funny that we actually just did, but that's a hard thing to do, and there's only a small amount of modification you could make to a tire mold, And you know what's crazy with tire molds right now? A lot of brands, are us included, have recently had their tire molds thrown away.
Oh no.
Yeah, I just went to order some fit FAF tires. We do them in 225, 23, and 24. The 23 mold, they came back to me and said, "Oh, we can't make the 23. We threw the mold away. We threw the tire molds away." And I said, "Why would you do that? We paid a lot of money for that mold." And they said, "Yeah, but you haven't used it for this amount of time, and your annual production hasn't been very much. And, there was some rust on the mold, and it was taking up room in the shop, so we threw it away." So now I've taken that tire to another manufacturer, actually in another country even, and I've taken that tire to, where did we take it? Thailand, I think. Yeah, Thailand. Taking that tire to another country, different manufacturer, and now getting that tire made there. And if that happened to me, I'm sure it's happened to a bunch of other people.
And I'm assuming you have to have the mold made again?
Absolutely.
That's crazy.
Yeah, but I mean, you think if you're the tire manufacturer and you've got thousands of tire molds, which are huge, filling up your whole shop, and you're going down the list, you're like, when's the last time we made these things? Oh, a year ago. They're like, throw it away.
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah.
But it sucked for us.
Yeah, in most scenarios, probably someone never came back or questioned it, but when you do.
So anyway, we're off on this crazy tangent, but I don't think people need to worry that much about this tariff thing now because it's always been like this. These Chinese tariffs have been super high in other countries like Canada and in Europe. This is nothing new. So even back when I was making fit bikes start to finish in mainland China outside of Shanghai back in, like I said, 07, 08, I was working in a factory next door to Haro. So the Haro factory was called Kenstone. The factory I was working in was next door to the factory, the Kenstone factory that was making the Haros. And I saw all kinds of brands getting made in these factories in mainland China. But the bikes that were going to other countries other than the United States needed to come out of Taiwan to avoid this huge duty or tariff.
Yeah.
So say your Haro, whatever bike came from mainland China into the United States, the one that went to Canada most likely came from Taiwan. It didn't come from China. And maybe the bike was not totally complete in mainland China, got sent to Taiwan, got completed in some way, and then got packaged up there. And then the sticker said made in Taiwan, where the bike that got made start to finish in mainland China said made in China. The made in China one comes to the United States. The made in Taiwan one goes to Canada.
Yeah.
Just to get around the tariff or the duty in that country.
The made in the US with China parts things that you hear about. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's a real thing. I mean, let's say you're making this calculator. You're making this calculator in the United States, but every single thing here came from, Bangladesh.
Yep.
And then you got it here and you put it all together here, made in USA.
Right.
And then who's going to come and tell you that wasn't truly made in the USA? The made in what country police? There's no such thing.
Right.
So I don't know. It's nothing new. This is a political thing. People want to get all worked up because they didn't like the way the election went. So then they get all fired up and they want to, find any way they can possibly get worked up about it. But at the end of the day, this is the way it's always been.
Right. And so short of something that we don't know about or something that we can't predict happens, it's going to probably be similar, and bike prices need to go up regardless of what happens.
They really do. I mean, if bike prices, if the perceived value of a BMX bike doesn't go up, it's all going to change. As the way we do business is going to change. Bikes are going to be sold off brands' websites. They're not going to go through bike shops.
Yep.
Bike shops that have always wanted to make, 35 to 40% margin on a bike, they're not even going to sell the bikes. So then kids aren't even going to know how to build their bike properly. They're not going to know how to maintain it. If people do try and go through the bike shop channel with the way we do and the way the industry's always done it, they're not going to have money for sponsoring riders. They're going to be operating out of home-based, home offices. It's just going to get more and more rinky-dink all the time.
Yeah, there was this conversation just going on yesterday in the little group chat that I have, where a suggestion was put out about marketing bikes a little bit differently, in that you can have the $400 complete, but also have the more expensive complete with all the bells and whistles that gets marketed to the same, to a more affluent, type of demographic, rather than everything being cheap.
Here's part of the problem too. If let's say Fit does a $399 retail bike, okay, and in order to get a $399 retail bike sold through a bike shop and still have a little bit of money left over to sponsor a few riders and do some marketing with events or whatnot, the bike's going to have a high tensile steel construction. Maybe it's got a chromoly steer tube, but high 10 legs, a loose ball front hub, an A headset, et cetera, et cetera. And then you get a brand that does nothing marketing wise and has no sponsored riders and operates out of a, like a home office and sells consumer direct for $400. And they have a hidden set and a sealed bearing front hub and a chromoly front triangle. And then you get a YouTube guy that, does a, most overrated bikes, thing on YouTube. And he pulls up the $400 fit and says, oh, for $400, you can get this bike from, Cobra Bikes or whatever the hell it's called. I don't know. I just made that up.
That's
not bad
one.
though.
That is a good one.
You could have Matt Berenger. Matt Berenger could be your first rider. Well, you wouldn't have a rider. Sorry, Matt. You don't get to be a rider. Cobra Bikes has no riders. They just have a hidden set.
Yep.
And the bike's $400. And you're buying it, from a Amazon fulfillment warehouse, in Fontana. And that's that. But the dude on YouTube is going to do a whole thing on how the Cobra bike has the hidden set and it's a better bike, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, maybe it's got the hidden set, but I mean, is that the BMX we want to be in? I mean, if that is, then everything that we like goes out the window.
That is a very interesting connection that I've never actually had or made, where you're talking about how features on a complete bike can relate to paying riders and doing cool things and all of that. Because I've been that guy making the videos like, this bike gets you the best features for this price.
Oh, I know.
So it makes it's an interesting thing that you never would make that connection, and no one else. It's you can't know something until you know it, until someone teaches you. So like other people are never going to make that connection either unless they're taught to make that connection.
And I mean, but really at the end of the day, for me, it's like, what is necessary for that rider at that level?
Right.
For forever, once we moved from shafted stems and 1-inch threaded steer tubes and we moved to 1 1/8 threadless A headsets, it was like the best thing ever. Everybody loved it. And then when S&M did the first BMX hidden set, or what we call, the campy hidden set, everybody thought it was gross and it looked like a Coke can and it was stupid and no one needed it. Now, in 2024, you put the 1 1/8 threadless A headset, which was great back when, T1 had it and, every brand had it and it was the best thing ever. And the hidden set was dumb. Now you put that same headset on a complete bike and people freak out like the bike is just a turd.
Yeah.
But it was great for Joe Rich and Taj, and they could all ride it. Ruben, whatever, all the best guys in the world rode it, and it was great. But now it's a turd. And now people want the hidden set on the $400 bike, and it's like, to make the hidden set compared to making the A headset. I'm surprised I don't have one laying right here, but when you make the regular head tube for the A headset, it's a piece of tubing that's like got a little machining on the inside, on the top and the bottom, and you're off and running. That's it, right? To make the hidden set, you have to start with this giant thing, and then you got to machine it on the outside. Not only do you have to machine it on the inside, you have to machine it with like 45-degree angles on the inside, and all that ends up costing a couple of dollars, and then those couple of dollars get tripled. So by the time that, and then the headset's more expensive, and then overseas, it's just always about levels of stuff. So even if it didn't cost them that much more to make it next level, so they're going to definitely charge you more for it. So it just ends up being like, what do you want? Option A, B, or C? And then C is going to cost more just because it's, it's the high end. So I don't know why everybody everybody freaks out about stuff like that. But at the end of the day, it's like, is anyone having a problem on their $399 complete bike with an 1.125" threadless A headset? What problem is that causing anyone?
Here's some more perspective too that I've realized is that like all these people who are wigging out about those things are people who already have a complete custom bike that they built after they're complete. And the people who are actually getting complete bikes are new people who are never going to stay on that bike in the first place.
Yeah, no, I know. It's weird. And the thing about that type of like upgrade path is kind of cool too, because if you start off with, but let's just say like nobody's going to have a threaded steer tube anymore, but let's just say you did, right? And the most inexpensive bikes had the 1-inch threaded steer tube.
Yep.
And you had to tighten your bear trap headset like I did when I was a kid. And then the next level had the 1.125" threadless A headset. And then the highest level had like the integrated, 41.8 millimeter hidden set, campy style. There's like a clear upgrade path. Like, what makes this better than this? And then why is this better than that? And it just makes sense from like a consumer standpoint if you're in a bike shop and you're trying to sell that to somebody.
Yeah.
But it's never going to go there because it's like, I don't know, man. I always equate this to like when people first started doing the backflip. And, like I think Eddie Fiola could do the backflip. Or maybe the first guy, Jose Yanez, could do the backflip, and he went, and did the movie Rad. Then there was like a pain, and they didn't want to work with them. So then maybe Eddie came in, and Eddie did the backflip, and they're getting like every time they're doing the backflip, they're getting like 10 grand to do the backflip, on camera, and they're making a big deal out of it. And then some dude like Todd Lyons just shows up one day like to a commercial shoot and is just like, I'll do the backflip for $20, whatever. And then he just does the backflip for $20, and now the backflip, it doesn't cost it. You don't make any money on the backflip. It's like, I feel like it's all kind of like that, where it's like a race to just screw everyone's just screwing each other all the time. And then pretty soon it's like, man, you're trying to run a legit brand, sponsor riders, help out, our BMX, or, help out other, media outlets and do events and trying to do all this cool stuff and work with bike shops. And then all of a sudden there's just some brand, Cobra Bikes or whatever, pops up, and boom, they're selling the $399 bike, full chrome ollie with the hidden set and the sealed hub and the whole deal. And they're selling it consumer direct. And it's just like, oh my God, it's Todd Lyons doing the backflip for $20.
Yeah. It's
and then everybody's just like, come on.
Yeah, it's the riders who are willing to send it fully for a 50% discount and nothing. They don't get anything out of it.
That's a crazy analogy. I know people are like, Moeller's insane, but I don't know. Just the way my brain works. And I'm just like, okay, when it really hits the fan, I always say like when the fit hits the fan, and we just go like consumer direct, and we're going to have, every imaginable deal on the bike. And it's like the whole thing just breaks down immediately.
Yeah. I hate to say it, but I almost feel like that's what it's going to take to find the bottom and then be able to start going back up.
Well, I don't know, man. I really like the idea that, if you're like, I just went to Richmond for that Powers 20-year party, and it was so cool to actually be there in the shop, seeing what Chad's got going on. He's got kids coming in, locals, their families, Chad and his guys are helping these kids figure out what bike they need to be on. They're making little tweaks to their bike to fit them better, help them ride better. It's a whole deal. And it's making that kid's experience so much better than it would be if he was just at home, on his computer, buying the cheapest BMX bike that he could with the features that he wants. It shows up, he puts it together wrong. It's kind of maybe it has the features, but the bike's still a big turd for lots of different reasons. And he has a terrible experience, and the thing just goes in the backyard, and it's like it's covered in grass and it's rusty, and now it's a done deal.
Yeah, yeah, man, this is another thing I think about quite a bit because the powers, the circuits, the empires, these are very, very unique things that exist throughout our country in very tight pockets of BMX. And I think we have to treat them differently than we treat the random bike shop that couldn't care less what someone buys.
Well, the fair weather shop, like they're nowhere to be found when everybody's hurting.
Yeah.
But when things are booming and they've got people coming through the front door just trying to hand them money, now all of a sudden they're on the phone.
Yeah.
And they need those bikes. You know, they want to be a dealer again. And they want those bikes on the floor. But here's the problem. Like, you have great shops, like all the ones you just mentioned are great shops that promote BMX and have local scenes and do all the right things that, you know, we wish all shops would do. But the problem is not everybody has that shop in their area.
Yep.
And you might live out in the middle of nowhere. Like, look at you. You live in a grassy field. Doesn't look like there's a bike shop for hundreds of miles where you're at right now.
Yeah.
I'm waiting to see like a little tractor come by in the back, but there's no bike shop over there, you know?
Yeah.
So now where are you going to buy your bike? Are you going to drive 200 miles to go to, you know, a good shop? Or are you just going to buy it online? It's
going to have to be a like destination type thing where it's like, this is a vacation for me, for it to be a travel to do it kind of a thing. Right.
Well, that's why I think the best scenario is, like you said, like Empire's a good example. Empire's it's a destination. It's a great shop. It's a destination shop. People go to Austin. They want to go to Empire. It's like on their list of things they want to do. They want to go to 9th Street. They want to go to House Park. They want to go to see East Side. They want to go to Empire. It's like on their list. But they also do mail order.
Yeah.
And I think that's I think that's great. But a lot of really good shops don't even mess with mail order. And I wish they would, because they can get their vibe, you know, out there through mail order, just like they do with a walk-in customer, but they have to be out there to you know, make that happen.
Yep. It's a weird spot that we're in for sure. I hope it
gets... But if you bought a complete bike from Empire, mail order, and you called in and said, hey, I'm having a problem, you know, putting this thing together, I bet they have a link or some video they've made they would send you, or they might even walk you through the whole process on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
I guarantee you they would.
Somebody,
you know,
would.
Then they would figure out, you know, oh, your whatever, your dust cap on your headset is, you know, you need to put the washer on top of it, not underneath it, or whatever it is.
Yeah, they'd get on a FaceTime call with you and walk you through
exactly. So that's kind of like, that's a great dealer. But yeah, I don't know. There's so many issues in the BMX industry that getting your panties in a big bunch right now over some, you know, Chinese tariff is really not necessary, in my opinion.
And it's gonna, yeah, it's not. I don't think it is either. And my whole perspective on all of this kind of stuff is that you just have to wait and see what happens before you react to anything, because you have right now, yeah, a lot of stuff was said, but until anything goes into effect, why worry about it twice?
Yeah. Well, I think the logic behind, you know, as a United States, you know, government, as a president or whoever's going to make these decisions, the logic behind these tariffs is, it's pretty sound, in my opinion, especially in industries that we've lost, that it's feasible that they could even come back.
Yeah.
You know, like I don't personally, like, I own an iPhone, but that thing should be made in the United States. I mean, people spend so much freaking money on these iPhones. There's enough margin there. And I think people would pay even more for them if they had to.
Yeah.
right? But you've got this thing being made at Foxconn or wherever, and you know these people jumping off the walls and being trapped in there. That's a freaking nightmare.
Or to talk about the where the stuff in your batteries comes from and you see the
And
pictures. It's terrible.
and people are supporting it. All they can't wait to get the iPhone, 18 or whatever's coming out next. They
Yeah.
can't wait. They don't give a crap about what's going on, in mainland China when it comes to their phone. But then they're freaking out because they're going to pay more for a spatula at Walmart. Come on.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But you got to put your money where your mouth is. And the whole point is make it so damn expensive that Apple says, screw it. Let's build a factory behind Brant Moore's house in that big ass grassy field,
Yeah.
right there. Build the factory there.
Yeah.
Tons of people probably need jobs. Put them in there. Let's make the phone there. That's the point. Nobody's thinking about BMX bikes. Trust me.
Right.
No, first of all, no one's buying them.
Yeah.
Like we just got a container of bikes today and it's like, woo, we got a container of bikes. 10 years ago, I remember a day I got 12 containers of bikes here in one day.
Damn.
12 cans in one day.
Wow.
Now we get one and it's like, woo, we're going to unload a container and everybody looks tired out there. They're like sweating, unloading the container. It's like, hey, everybody, remember like 10 years ago when we get 12 in a day? Yeah. No, the whole business is going in the crapper. So
the industry isn't big enough.
Worrying about, a Chinese tariff, it's like, please. I recently had this is an interesting thing, but I recently had a meeting with the guys from GT, and they wanted to bring GT back to the United States, specifically to Santa Ana, because GT started in Santa Ana. They wanted to get GT frames made in Santa Ana, And so I went to lunch with these guys, and I said, whatever, like, I'm open to it. I need the business. I have a great shop. We're capable of building like the best stuff.
Yep.
We have some time. Let's build some GT frames in Santa Ana. I'm all about it. Just give me the drawings and give me the projected quantities and give me the projected price. What do you want to pay for the bikes? Took forever to get this info, but when I finally got it, I got the drawing and I got their, estimates on quantity and I got their target price. Target price was exactly what they pay for frames from Taiwan. It was like $130. So are you freaking kidding me? I can't even get the material for that price. So they're just out of their minds. People don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah. Well,
they want an American made frame for the cost of importing a frame from Taiwan. Not going to happen.
Yeah.
So GT frames coming out of Santa Ana anytime soon.
I hope that whatever happens ends up being good for us and we see a phoenix rise from the ashes that are being burnt right now.
Yeah, but the real issue is you don't have kids getting on 20-inch bikes in the numbers that you've had them, getting on 20-inch bikes in the past. That's the real number.
Yeah.
That's the real issue. And why is that? To me, that's like, and I see a few things. Like one, at my spot anyway, I see a lot of young kids showing up on 26-inch dirt jumpers.
Yeah. There's a million things for them to do. They can have the hoverboard, the one wheel, video games, there's so much more to do.
But even take all that weird external stuff out of the picture and just focus on like what's happening on wheels on dirt. Little kids are getting Stasics.
Yeah.
Like say you're a moto family and moto families have money. They're like, that's the family that will spend money on wheels on dirt.
Yeah.
Right. And Jeremy McGrath rode a BMX bike and then he just kicked everyone's ass on a dirt bike. So it was always like, if you want your kid to kick ass on a dirt bike down the road, you got to get them to the racetrack to race BMX first to get those skills. And that's not the case anymore. Now, Moto Dad puts his kid on the Stasic.
Yeah.
And the kid's just whizzing around on the Stasic, and he's not riding a BMX bike anymore. Because it used to be Moto Dad put the kid on the BMX bike, and then the kid was like, I don't even like to ride my dirt bike anymore. I mean, like me, I rode a dirt bike before I rode a BMX bike, really. And I was like, I don't even like riding the dirt bike. It's loud. You know, I got to put gas in it and all this. It's just like a big drag. I can't ride it when my dad's not home. But my BMX bike, I ride this thing the minute I get home from school. In fact, I'll ride it to school and ride it home from school. And I don't got to put gas in it. And it's not real loud. And I don't have to drive out to the desert and put on a bunch of crap to ride it. I'll just ride it around. So I never even did the dirt bike thing. I just stayed on the BMX bike. But that's not going to happen anymore. Because little dirt bike Johnny is going to get on the Stasic. And then he's going to get on the frickin' Y Zinger. And then he's going to get on the little 100. And that's that. And the Super Mini or whatever. And then that's it. He's not doing BMX.
Yeah. So, I don't know the answer.
That's kind of an issue, you know? And then it's not like you can go to the local bike shop anymore and check out all these sick bikes. I mean, when I was a kid, I'd go to the local bike shop and they had all the BMX bikes in there. It was like a kid in a candy store. Now you go to a bike shop and you're not going to see anything really cool. You're going to come out of there. If you go in there and say you want to ride dirt jumps, you're leaving on a bike with a shock.
Yep.
Because they don't even have BMX bikes and they don't even know what it is. And they don't even care about it. I'll tell you a funny story. I went into a local bike shop in Colorado and they actually were a fit dealer and they didn't know who I was when I first went in there. And I needed an inner tube. And the kid that worked there was like, you know, oh, what size inner tube? And I said, 20 inch. And he was like, oh, 20 inch? What? Well, why? And I said, oh, because I ride this and ride that. And he's like, oh, basically he told me that was dumb and that I should be riding a 26 inch dirt jumper and that nobody really rides 20 inch bikes. And I was just like, oh my God, this is incredible. He doesn't know that like I'm the owner of a company that he sells the product. It's right there on the floor. He had no idea. Treated me like crap. It made me feel like the biggest nerd of all time. And then later over the weeks and months to follow, they figured out who I was. And I think that kid was like embarrassed and everybody was like, you're an idiot. But I got shit when I went in there. Like I was a big nerd because I wanted a 20 inch tube and I was like an old dude and I was going to ride a 20 inch bike. And then he was telling me nobody really does that. And I was like, we're fucked.
Yeah. I don't know what it takes, but the future is going to be interesting. I think 2025 is going to be a year where it actually hits the fan and we see implications of the past 5 years.
No, it has hit the fan. It's already hit the fan.
I think seeing it, like, we'll see what results from it. I think we're going to finally see a bigger company go away.
Oh, I just got a message from my buddy that's like real deep in the bike industry. Like real deep in the bike industry. And I'm going to read it to you. So I just got this from him this morning. And he reached out to me. And this is what he told me. He says, and this is a guy that, travels the world, goes to manufacturing plants in Asia and the whole thing. Yeah. He says, crazy times out in the field, hearing Trek owes Giant and Shimano hundreds of millions of dollars. Also hearing Giant owes Shimano a lot and can't get components. And he's going on and on about, imagine that Trek has always been the biggest bike company in the biggest American bike company. And back in the day, up in your neck of the woods, they're manufacturing up there. They used to make their own stuff up there. Trek owes Giant and Shimano hundreds of millions of dollars, hundreds of millions. And that's the biggest American bike company, Trek. So, it's kind of already hit the fan, we're hanging in there, but it's not easy, man.
Yeah.
We're calling bike shops and trying to convince bike shops to put 20-inch BMX bikes on the floor. And that's a hard sell right now.
Yeah, it is. I'm sure. And the margins being what they are, you might have, this is the thing I don't think a lot of other people don't understand too, is that even if a margin is like a similar percentage between a bigger ticket item and a BMX bike, they're still gonna go for the bigger ticket item that sells more often because they make more money on that floor space.
Yeah. Oh, I've heard the floor space argument forever. Yeah. Yeah. And you can't blame them.
No,
I
you
mean,
can't.
but the best argument I can come up with for for using that valuable floor space on a 20-inch bike as opposed to like a 26 dirt jumper exclusively is that it could be a different customer. It could be a younger customer or maybe a customer that doesn't have the money to buy the 26-inch dirt jumper. So maybe you got a kid in there that $400 is doable, but 800 isn't doable.
Mm.
And you want to get a kid on a bike as early as possible just to create like a lifelong cyclist. So I think the BMX bike is a great sort of, entry into the cycling lifestyle.
Yeah.
Like, but now they've got smaller bikes with gears and like I've been through this in my personal life where I have friends that have kids the same age as my kids. And I even went to a doctor recently. I got in an argument with this doctor lady about this. They want to put their kids on mountain bikes, geared mountain bikes, front and back brakes, gears, the whole deal, because they can ride longer distances. They can go on rides with their parents. They get to sit down, pedal around. They think the BMX bike is too small. And like, they will be better riders if they learn how to ride a regular BMX bike. So my girls, they don't have mountain bikes. They're riding around on fit 18-inch bikes,
Mm-hmm.
Single speed, one brake. They're standing up out of the seat, learning how to ride with, they've got to stand up to pedal the bike. They're learning how to ride really well. And then eventually, I'm sure they'll get all kinds of other bikes, but they're going to be way better bike riders.
Yeah.
All BMXers are the best bike riders out there, period. Doesn't matter. Like they can move on to full suspension, downhill. They can do the slope style. They can ride 26 dirt jump. They can ride pump tracks, road bikes, gravel bikes. It doesn't matter. BMX riders are the best bicycle riders in the world, period. If they put their mind to riding a different genre, different style of bike.
It's like the base core level of riding a bicycle is a BMX bike.
Yeah, they can be the best bike riders. I mean, look at the whole slope style world, back in the day with like Darren Bearclaw and all these guys. They were all BMX guys. And BMX guys took over cross country mountain biking. They took over downhill. Yeah, and maybe some kids are starting on like mountain bikes nowadays, but I don't know. I think me personally, I got my kids riding BMX bikes for lots of reasons, but if I were the bike shop, I would want to have a little bit of everything in my shop.
Yeah.
But where it gets weird is like you got USA BMX out there promoting Stasic races at their events. Like that, just because Stasic's like a big advertiser in their paper or their magazine and gives them a bunch of money for their events. Like to me, that's insanity. If I owned a racing sanctioning body, the last thing I would be doing is promoting electric bikes.
Yeah.
It seems crazy to me.
I think in BMX, there's a lot of like first steps towards things that happen. Like the Stasic thing, if it was done in like a I don't know the words, like steps where you make moves to get the kids from Stasics to actual bike, like you need more than just the stasis rake. Then you need this step. We're going to make this move to try and I think that there's a lot of things in BMX like that, where it's like we have these big ideas and we only take the first step in doing them and then just kind of stop. But if you kept those things moving, you would see more results.
Yeah, but imagine giving a kid the choice between having to pedal to go somewhere or to just
Oh yeah.
do this.
Oh yeah. Everybody's riding e-bikes these days. Everybody.
Yeah, you're doing this or you're doing this, but you don't even have to pedal. It's crazy. Like,
Yeah.
you know, and then I see kids around here, like I'm in California right now, and I see kids around here, especially near the beach where people have money, and these kids are flying around on Super 73s and all these other, you know, Rad Power, whatever it is. These things cost thousands of dollars.
That's the other thing that boggles my mind, is that we have 13-year-old kids riding, what's it, Surons?
Yeah.
And it's similar bikes to that cost like $3,000 to $10,000, but you can't get them to buy a $400 BMX bike. It's like, where there's something lost here, and I don't know what it is or how to find it.
Well, I mean, I'll leave you with this. I know, you know, we've gotten way off of, you know, this crazy fear or whatever, this hysteria surrounding the impending, you know, tariff.
Yeah.
Everyone's losing their mind over, which is like totally unnecessary.
Easy solve for us.
Not going to affect anything. I guarantee you, nothing.
Yeah.
You're going to be able to buy BMX bikes for half of what they probably should be selling for a long time. Eventually, the biggest problem is going to be trying to find one, because they're not even going to exist anymore. The whole thing's going to be dumb. It's going to be like rollerblading. It's going to be gone.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, it's the worst. But the thing is like all the publicity is too crazy for riding. And I've always said this, like when BMX grows, it's because it's attainable, or at least it appears attainable. So when the trail scene, I think, is pretty strong. Like the whole trail riding community is pretty strong. So where things are getting lost is like the street riding is just too gnarly and the park riding is just too hectic. So where are the new people showing up? They're showing up at the pump track. And then they're going to, like, if I see one more freaking clip from this San Diego dirt jump park just got built, I'm going to lose my damn mind.
Yeah.
Steve Caballero going through the Black Diamond Run. Have you seen this? Yeah. Like everything on my Instagram feed, everyone's at the same San Marcos park. I feel like I'm going to hang myself if I see any more clips from this place. But you know why everyone's showing up? Because it's super fun and it's easy as shit.
Yeah.
You roll in, you go over a tabletop. You go over a step up, you know, you go, it's easy as shit, but it's super fun. Like they're unweighting, they're landing. You got Steve Caballero, you know, the skateboarder going through the double diamond run or whatever. But thank God, like something like that's happening. Cause if you watch the Olympics, whether it's racing, which looks death defying and like unimaginable, or park riding, like no one's doing that. Or you watch street riding and you're like, oh my God, you watch a Dawn of the Streets, you know, coverage, and you're like, how did nobody just get carted off in a body bag? I mean, this stuff's like, but you know what everybody's doing? They're going to San Marcos and going through the double diamond run. So I think this shit's just too gnarly. It's like the sport gets so small because you go through these phases where it's like top heavy. Everybody involved is so badass that now they're doing like R. Willie's doing like a quadruple spinning flip.
Yes, this is something I think about too, because what BMX doesn't do is market to the pump track people. We have to be okay with lowering our level a little bit enough to show a pro going to the pump track and showing how fun it is, and then promoting the brand so that random guy in the town sees that He's like, oh, I want to get my kid to the pump track. I need to get him this
Right.
bike.
Yeah, but this is what I'm trying to tell you. Bring it full circle. The kid sees that, and then he goes into the bike shop and he goes, "Oh, I want to get a bike." And they go, "What kind of riding do you want to do?" And he's like, "Oh, I want to be able to go over like the dirt. I want to be able to go over the dirt." And they're like, "Oh, you need a dirt jumper."
Yeah.
Then he gets the dirt jumper, which is a 26-inch bike or a 24-inch bike with a 80 mil suspension fork. It's not a 20-inch bike with a rigid fork on it.
Yeah.
So the whole thing gets lost, you know? Every other genre of bike riding makes sense. It's like, oh, a road bike, you ride it on the road. It's a mountain bike, you ride it in the mountains. It's a dirt jump bike, you ride it on the dirt jumps. What is this thing? Oh, this is a bicycle motocross. Bicycle motocross? It's a weird ass name for the bike. I mean, that bike should almost be called the dirt jumper, right? But the mountain bike industry just swooped in and just stole our shit, and we didn't do anything about it. So now you've got guys sending themselves down 20 stair handrails on a bicycle motocross.
Yeah,
It doesn't make any sense at all. Motocross has got like motors and 2 brakes, gears, and they go around and around and around for 30 minutes. These guys just go down a handrail. That's not a bicycle motocross. It's super confusing, and nobody knows, you know. So it's like when a gravel bike was called a cyclocross bike, nobody bought it. Nobody bought it.
Yeah.
Then they changed the name recently. Oh, it's a gravel bike. Now everybody's buying them.
Man, so what would it be? What would you rename it to?
I don't know,
Yeah.
but and like, this might be, you know, issue 3 Greystoke dog bites right here. Like,
there you go.
Well, back in the 80s when shit was booming, they were freestyle bikes.
There you go. It's the freestyle bike.
You had a freestyle bike, you had a race bike, and you had a dirt jumping bike.
Yep.
That's what it was. It was like, and then S&M came around and we were like, we do it all on this bike. Well, what's it called? Like, I don't know. It's an S&M. You know, we race it, we ride it on the street, we ride it on the trails, or we didn't call them trails. That mountain bikers ride dirt jumps. BMXers ride trails.
Yeah. That doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense. Dirt jumpers aren't even ridden on dirt. They're plywood. The freaking jumps are made out of plywood. They should be called plywood jumpers.
Wow.
The landing is dirt, but all the lips are made out of plywood, and it's lame. And then you go to the trails, and they're dirt. And they're not trails at all. They're jumps.
Yeah, you
So
see.
the whole thing's jacked up. You know, you tell somebody you go to the bike shop, you know, mom and pop bike shop, and you say, I ride trails on a bike. They think you're a cross-country mountain biker.
Or the towpath. Yeah.
So the whole thing's screwy, and I don't know. I don't know what you do about it, but a skateboard is called a skateboard, and you might skate street, you might skate pools, you might skate vert, whatever. The thing's called a skateboard, and it makes sense. And every single type of skating, the skateboard makes sense.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
You're on a bicycle motocross, and you're grinding handrails. It just doesn't make any sense. But what do you I'm trying to just keep, I'm trying to make the payroll every 2 weeks over here, with a $399 bike that has an A headset on it. So, it's like
freestyle park, freestyle street, freestyle.
Yeah.
Whatever. It's also, that's a long thing to say.
Yeah, I know, but I'm telling you, when the cyclocross bike was called that, nobody bought it. They changed the name to gravel bike. It sold like crazy. And now it's a whole thing. It's just cyclocross. You get off the bike, you jump over the log, you run through the mud, whatever. It's the same crap, but it's called gravel now. It's not called cyclocross because cyclocross was weird.
I think
What was it called when you showed up at the dirt jumps on your mountain bike? It was called lame, and people were like, get out of here. Now you show up on your mountain bike at the dirt jumps, and it's called a dirt jumper, and there's more of you than there are dudes on 20-inch bikes.
Yeah.
All because the name changed. When you showed up at the dirt jumps on your mountain bike, you were a big dork. and people were like, get out of here. Now you show up on that thing and you own the spot. You got a carbon fiber helmet. You've got gloves on, goggles. Who knows? You got a whole kit. Your bike, your helmet costs more than a 20-inch complete bike.
It's like an experience that's being sold.
Yeah, all because they changed the name to Dirt Jumper.
I think you're onto something with this. I really do.
Yeah.
You've been in it long enough, you know.
Because if you showed up on your, like your specialized stump jumper back in, 88, you came to our spot, you came to Sheep Hills in 92 on your specialized stump jumper, we would have been like, get out of here.
Yeah.
Or just sit over there. You and your shaved legs and your Lycra, you just sit over there, stay out of our way, and don't drink our beer. But now there's more of those dudes at the trails than there are, I don't know. Hey, we're making one, man. You can argue about this and bitch and complain about it, or you can just like give the people what they want. And all my friends, my older friends, they've moved on. They're like bigger wheels. We got a shock in the front. We got a brake that actually works. We can ride every day because our backs aren't killing us. And Moeller, you got to make one of these bikes for us. And, I was like, well, we already did back in 2000 with Black Market.
Yeah.
We're really popular. Like, okay, so now we're making one. And it's cool. And I haven't moved on to one of those bikes. I feel like I'll save that for when I'm like 70,
Mm-hmm.
I'm still riding it out on the 20, but I mean, we want to be in business. We like this business and we want to stay in it.
Yeah. Why
that's us.
If people are going to buy it anyways from someone else, why not make it so they can? And it's not.
Oh yeah. You don't want to buy I get guys hit me up all the time. They're like, man, please don't make me buy the Kona, Party Monster or whatever the hell this thing's like. Don't make me buy this bike from some like corny brand.
Yeah.
Please let me buy an S&M, 26-inch bike. Like, okay, we're making it. But I don't know. I just, it's a bummer to watch the like our industry, which is the least cohesive industry in the world, probably. It's a bummer to watch it just let a name of a style of bike be so disruptive,
Well, I think it's a disconnect too, in that most of the people who do marketing in BMX aren't marketing people who would make those connections on their own. Like, it's just a guy who happened to work for a company and moved into the marketing position, and this is how it's always been. And I didn't go to school for marketing and learn about it outside, so I don't recognize those types of things because it's just not in my experience.
Right. Yeah. And we don't, it's like at the end of the day, most of us are riders. We don't, like, all we really are thinking about all day is like getting off work and trying to go ride.
Yep.
We're not thinking about the health of the industry.
Yeah, I think we need a few people who do.
We're not that we're not just purely motivated by trying to make $1 billion. If we were, we'd probably change the name of the bike.
Yeah, I think we need a few people who ride and then went to school for marketing and are okay with making BMX money or helping a company out.
Yeah.
To just guide some things versus, and these people are cool people. The people who do marketing in BMX, who have been riders, all that stuff, they're cool people. But I think they need help from people who learned it from like the outer things in the world.
Yeah. But you bring them in and they get run out. That's what always happens.
Yeah. We got to be okay with it.
Get somebody like that that's a little bit, outside the box. They get run out in one way or another, and they get called all kinds of names and they get run out, and that's that. And then, we're just all left with each other, and this is where we're at.
Yeah, BMX needs to learn how to be okay with taking the help for that one, because we need it.
Or they need to be okay with being broke.
Or just go out of business, and then someone who does know will finally be able to come in and
Yeah.
help us out, because we really do need different marketing,
That's where we are. Like the internal struggle for someone like me is like, man, this shit ain't easy. Couldn't I just build like 10 bikes? Like, say I built 10 Mad Dog bikes. I built 6 20-inch Mad Dogs dialed, and I did like 4 22-inch Mad Dogs just dialed, like everything. The bike's just perfect. And then I like just put them all, just sealed them all up and put them away. And then I just shut the lights
done.
off.
Yeah.
I'm out. I'm good. Like, I'm out.
Yeah.
There's no way I'm going to burn through 6 20-inch bikes and 4 22-inch bikes before I croak. So I'm good.
Yeah.
And the lights are off. I'm out.
And
That's BMX.
even if you needed a bike, you could get one made. You have the knowledge to have a bike made again if you needed it.
Right. So it's like, yeah, you have your bikes and you're good to go. And, that would be that. It's just such a bummer, though, in my opinion. But, when you're doing battle with, like, on so many different fronts in your own business, it's frustrating. Like, luckily there are like some good bike shops out there. I went to a really cool bike shop in New Mexico recently called Barefoot Bikes. And the guy, like, I walked in and the guy had Fits and he had S&M stuff and he had other like core BMX brand stuff in his shop. And he was behind the counter and he had like an S&M bike of his own sitting back there. And it would, that kind of thing gives me hope, but it's on a much smaller scale than we would like it to be. So like the whole business is just everybody's just gonna have to shrink it down to make it work.
Yeah, at least for a certain period of time until finally things start to change.
Right.
But we can't expect them to either. We have to make them change.
Well, I mean, it was like the mid 80s, when things were really attainable. Like BMX showed up on chips and all they were doing was like riding around the track, but it looked fun. They were jumping a water hole. A dude was splashing down in the mud. And then kids were just like, oh, that looks rad. I want to do that. And then the movie Rad came out and these guys were doing like basic flatland moves and everything was like super attainable and it looked super fun. ET comes out, same thing. Your guys just riding down the street, jumping down, like a construction site, just going off some like banks. Everything was like, totally like it looked reasonable that an average kid could get a bike and do that. And then things are booming. And then, next thing Matt Hoffman's getting towed into a 30-foot ramp by a motorcycle and he's 50 feet in the air and shit's dead again. It's like every time it gets so crazy that people are just like, that's insane. Like no one's doing that. It kind of like dies way down.
Yeah. Yeah. So my thought process has been, I don't know how I didn't think to say this already, talking about marketing and changing all of that. I think a huge problem is that BMX markets to our people who already have BMX bikes. We got to figure that out.
And none of them buy anything anyway.
Yeah.
But if you market to people that actually might potentially buy stuff, then you're kind of lame.
Yeah, that we got to lose that mentality.
But I mean, that's where we're at.
Yes,
right?
it
so
is.
We're just marketing to ourselves, but we already have bikes.
Yep.
And no one's buying anymore.
Yep.
And then if you try and market to like someone else, then you're lame, unless you could do it somehow with the bike shop. If a manufacturer like Fit or S&M could, well, S&M's weird because we're like more just purely aftermarket, you know? But Fit is a better example because of the complete bike product. But if Fit could work with bike shops and then bike shops could somehow, through like school events, stuff like that. Like a few years ago, I built some little ramps and took them to my girls' elementary school it was like a holiday party they had in their parking lot or in their playground area, and I built like some little rollers and a little like a wedge ramp, a little tabletop out of plywood, and I had brought like 10 bikes, 12-inch, 14, 16, and 18-inch fits, and I just put them there and let all the kids ride them. It was the biggest hit of the whole elementary school event.
That's
Like there were
awesome.
like throw a ball and sink your teacher in the water or whatever. There were all these other things. Throw a thing, throw a dart or something, pop a balloon. Nobody cared about anything except getting the bikes and riding the bikes through this little course. But of course, a few kids ate shit. There was some blood.
Yeah.
There was some blood spilled on the parking lot there at the school, and so it was a little edgy. But if bike shops were doing stuff like that in their towns all the time, I'm telling you, you'd be making new BMXers left and right.
Take it another step further even and add if there's a local pro rider who rides for fit and the bike shop organizes this thing, you don't need a big crazy ramp. Just go and ride with these kids for an hour, 2 hours, do what you can on whatever is there, and
Right.
instantly you're a superhero to those kids.
Yeah. No, I know that would be sweet, but I mean that's not really in our culture at this point. Like that's not what we're promoting, you know. We're basically just it's basically the culture is just getting clips, putting them on social media just to almost like impress one another all the time.
Is keep BMX for ourselves and look as cool as we possibly can and not care or ostracize people who go out of their way to try to grow it.
Right. But then we all feel the results of the shrinkage.
Yeah.
You know, when I got to make that call to the riders and tell them I can't give you that money I've been giving you every month, that's like my least favorite thing to do. Or laying off an employee. These are my least favorite things to do. And I wait as long as humanly possible to make those calls, like to the detriment of my finances. In most cases, unfortunately, and I think a lot of people do, but at this point, I'm surprised anybody is able to pay anybody to ride.
Yeah. Oh, man.
In our industry, unless it's purely sales related. You know, like unless you have a signature frame that you get X amount of dollars for every time it sells, I'm surprised anybody gets paid in any other way than that.
Oh man, this could go down so many rabbit holes because it's the aspect of you give riders expectation and they feel spite because of it, or like you're asking them to move the heaven and the earth just because you want them to actually have obligations as their job.
Right.
And I don't know.
I don't know if I mean, you follow me. The only social media I do personally is Instagram. That's it. I don't do Twitter. I don't do Facebook. I don't even know what else is going on. A little YouTube thing maybe here and there, but mainly I'm just on Instagram personally. And man, I'm not too proud to sell a hoodie on sale. I mean, I don't know if you've noticed that I'm just constantly trying to sell.
Oh, dude.
You know, this is available. Like I'm trying to sell this because if I don't sell stuff, I don't have a job.
Yeah, I mean, I try screenshot your posts whenever they go up every time I see it, because it's like, this is the connection, is like, I don't even get paid by you guys, but I know that when I do this, it helps you and that helps keep it going.
No, I appreciate it. And you know, like I said, I'm not too proud to do that. It's like a lot of people are uncomfortable doing that kind of thing. Like a lot of people are uncomfortable. They feel like they're selling out or whatever, but whatever. I mean, we've got good stuff. We need people to know about it, or they're not going to think about buying it if they don't even know about it.
Selling out is not doing those things to help this awesome company and then going and having to sell out to a job because it
Right.
didn't end up working out.
Like in the real world.
Yes.
I know. I know. That's a reality that, most riders, I'd say 99% of pro riders are dealing with.
Yeah.
So it's tough, man. It's not easy, but at least we're talking about it.
I think that's really the only way that we can establish change in things is to talk about them and have someone like you who's lived it.
Yeah.
I cannot, I don't know how I didn't notice it until starting to work with you guys, but there is no company that I see more than S&M. Like if you did a tally at any given time when I go and ride, there are more S&Ms than anything else at any given time.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of reasons for that. I mean, we've been around for a long time.
Right, but people trust you. And so
Right.
when we have a conversation like this and they hear you talking, they're like, okay, there's something to this. And it's not just me, swoopy hair me with a inspirational quote in the background talking for 40 minutes. Like those people do listen to those, but they listen to someone like you way more. Oh, I lost your audio.
Oh, yeah, it's back.
Okay, there it is.
Back. I mean, I guess I offer insight into things that not a lot of people, get to see very often.
Yes, you do.
Because I've been like on every side of the industry for so long, whether it's working at magazines, making like the first BMX videos or the first like freestylish kind of street, type videos back in the day, manufacturing, going overseas, manufacturing, being a sponsor, being sponsored, pretty much been on every, every facet of the industry.
Yep.
For a long time. So, I mean, I can offer a little bit of, like insight into those things that not everybody can,
Yep, absolutely. And
but I can tell you right now that we're definitely in a difficult period. And, it's funny that with everything else that's going on, it's this tariff thing that's got people freaked out. But like I said, just back on that topic to wrap it up, I feel like it's mainly people making a big deal out of something that's probably not going to affect them at all. In fact, somebody could make a case for, getting rid of these duties on kids' bikes based almost purely on let's get more kids on bikes to keep them healthy and get them off their screens, get them off YouTube or whatever, stuff they're doing online, which is terrible in general. I mean, there's nothing going on the phone that's good for a kid.
Yeah, man. Increase the stuff that has to do with electronics and decrease the physical activity type stuff. That as far as tariffs go.
So you take like a RFK Jr., if this guy gets more involved in the government, which sounds like he will be, he might, as a health guy, he might look at that and he might get some inspiration from somebody to make it more affordable for people to import any kind of device or bike or whatever it is that helps kids get outside and exercise.
Yep, that makes total sense.
That's very possible.
Yeah.
And then these big tariffs, you're going to hit people with these big tariffs, hit people in like, industries that reasonably could come back to the United States.
Yes.
So, automobiles. Let's talk about automobiles. Let's talk about solar panels. American-made solar panels, not Chinese solar panels.
Yeah.
Let's talk real stuff. Like big time stuff that actually could be brought back to the United States, whether it be aircraft or again, vehicles,
appliances.
Yeah.
Big.
but there's some stuff. It's like tires. It's difficult for people to build tires in the United States because of the environmental,
Yeah.
impact of making tires. Like, have you ever been in a tire factory?
No, I never have. It's got to
It's
be awful.
it's crazy. I mean, tires are made out of petroleum.
Lowers your life expectancy just going in there.
People that work in tire factories have a shorter life expectancy. It's a fact. But all that stuff used to be made in the United States. Not anymore.
Well,
I mean, I have a BMX bike in my office right here that has a tire on it that was made by Carlisle, which I think was in either Ohio or Pennsylvania.
Carlisle sounds really familiar.
They're still around. They make tires for like tractors and stuff.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's why it's familiar because the tractor.
But I have a tire, a Carlisle Aggressor. It was called. It was like the most badass tire in the like early '80s, late '70s, early '80s. The Carlisle Aggressor was like the most badass race tire, and I have one on a bike. I'm looking at it right now, made in America. When was the last time a BMX tire was made in the United States? That might have been it.
Yeah.
In the '80s, and that's because making tires is pretty dirty.
Yeah.
But it's not stopping anybody in the United States, environmentalists included, from buying tires for their Tesla.
Or developing.
I've never seen a Tesla without tires.
Like develop an alternative based on
Yeah, like
that.
I don't see anyone driving around Newport Beach with a bamboo tire.
Right.
They're all made out of rubber, which is made out of oil, which is made in a foreign country and is polluting the atmosphere.
Well, it's rules for thee and not for me, right? It's okay. It's
Well,
okay.
as long as it's not being done in your backyard,
Yeah.
you don't care.
Yeah.
But I'm all for, hey, if we're going to have tires on our Teslas, let's make them here.
Figure out a way. Yeah.
And try and make them cleaner. Let's make them cleaner, but let's make them here.
Yeah.
Just because they're made in, India or China doesn't mean they're not being made. It's all the same atmosphere we're polluting. Doesn't matter if it's over there or here.
Yep.
So this tariff thing isn't going to affect BMX. It's not going to affect, bike prices. If anything, they might even, who knows, get rid of these duties on bike stuff.
Yeah, which would,
because where does that money go anyway? It's like, yeah, you up the price on the bike by 11% by charging the duty, but then where does that money go?
Yeah.
It's making the imported bike more expensive, which theoretically is supposed to protect the domestically made bike by equalizing the price.
But we don't have one, so.
But then where's the 11% even going?
Yeah.
What are you doing with it? What are they doing with that money?
And it's not helping because we don't have any domestically made complete bikes anyways.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make any sense. It's just a fact of life and something we all have to deal with, but it's not going to get crazy. And really, I mean, if it only is mainland China, then just start getting your bikes in Taiwan.
Yeah.
And don't worry about mainland China. And then if Taiwan gets too expensive, it most likely will, then they'll just move to Vietnam, where a lot of bikes have already moved to anyway. Or they'll go to, like I said, India is probably the cheapest place, and you can get bikes made in India too.
Yep.
So the bike business will just be chasing the cheap labor all over the globe.
Yep. Well, this is insightful, as always. You definitely have a lot of experience that can help ease people's craziness towards things when it comes to this, and hopefully this got something done anyways.
Well, like I said, it's kind of like I deal with this on a daily basis. This will be interesting. Let's find out how much we just spent on duty today on that one can, and then we'll wrap this up.
Okay.
If she's at her desk.
Yeah.
She might not be at her desk. Oh, and we got another can coming tomorrow too, but tomorrow will be parts. Some bikes.
Hello. You have reached the voicemail
Yeah, she's not at her desk, but we'll see. Maybe she'll show up in a second. But tomorrow we got a can of mainly parts, but a couple hundred bikes again. So yeah, and then between today and tomorrow, we probably just spent, I'm gonna guess, close to 30 grand on duty.
That
Duty, duty, duty. It's like shit, right?
well, duty that's meant to help level the playing field that is already all coming from one place. So in reality, you guys are just paying more money, which would have
Yeah.
helped you if you didn't have to spend it.
Everything we have coming in, today and tomorrow is all stuff that you cannot make. You cannot make it in the United States. Like there's nothing in either one of these cans that's like stuff that we could do here. I'm gonna confirm that here in a second, but so it's complete bikes, which you can't do here, right? Or you could, but the bike would end up like the Supreme bikes that we did. We assembled those right here in our building, but we only did 300 of them, I think, and it took us like all week to do it.
Yeah.
When I was working in mainland China, we could do 1,000 bikes a day.
Jeez.
On one production line, 1,000 bikes a day. And the factory, and even the ones we do in Taiwan, we can do 500 a day. So sometimes we do 2 assembly plants, and we would do 1,000 a day, but it took 2 plants. In China, we could do 1,000 a day in 1 plant. Here, it took us a week to do 300.
And a bike made of components that are way more expensive than anything coming from over there.
Oh yeah, I'm just talking about the time it took.
Yeah.
To so yeah, everything we have coming in today and tomorrow is like stuff you can't make here. So we're talking about brake cables, headsets, that kind of stuff. Chains. You can't. There's no vendors for that stuff here.
Yeah.
And that's probably 30 grand in duty to the government, and that doesn't even include ocean freight or inland transportation charges to get these cans from the port to here on the back of a truck. So it ends up costing you so much money. But that 30K this week to the government is such a huge bummer. It's like that's just $30,000 that's going to the government, and who knows what they're going to do with it. And they already took it out of our account. And we haven't even started selling this stuff yet.
Well, let's just hope that things move in a direction where, because bikes are good for your health, that could go away.
I can see it happening, man. Somebody's just got to get in their ear and just say, listen, these phones are melting kids' brains. Like the shorts, the YouTube, the influencers, the porn, you name it, it's melting people's brains.
You just become a zombie where you're like
a zombie, a full-blown zombie. Get them out of the phone zone and get them on a bike and help the people that are, doing bike stuff or skateboard stuff or I don't know, scuba gear, boogie boards, whatever. Yeah. Whatever it is, let's get rid of the tariffs on all that stuff, get these kids outside and get them out of the phone zone.
I'm right there with you, and I hope that those seeds get planted.
Yeah, but in the meantime, this is a fact of life. It always has been. It's nothing new, and it's not going to affect anybody.
Well, there you have it, people. Tariffs have always been there. They will always be there unless something cool happens.
Yeah, well, I can guarantee you that, the big orange guy in D.C. is not sitting around thinking about how he's going to stick it to the BMX industry.
Yep, we're not big enough for that.
No, and you know what? If it does go like sideways, you can always ride American bikes again.
There we go. There it is.
See you, Brant Moore.
Bye, everybody. There's your answer.